What's up, everybody?
Hey guys, thank you for joining us again today.
Thank you for coming back.
My name is Michael.
This is Ming Tian.
And welcome to the Impossible Duo Show. Today,
right.
we will be talking about free press and whether or not free press is required for a government that serves its people.
That sounds very interesting. Let's get started. Before I get into the topic, I want to highlight one thing. Although this looks like a debate, it is actually not. Nowadays, a lot of people, or almost all of us, are forced to pick sides, right? It's either black or white, it's either US or China, it's either Democratic or, Republican.
Red or blue.
Red or blue, right? The people have to realize that the world we're living in is way more complicated than just yes or no, black or white, or anything like that. Usually it's somewhere in the middle, okay? So with that, let me roll it out for you what I think about this topic. First thing first, let's try to define what is free press, right? According to Merriam-Webster Dictionary, freedom of the press is defined as the right of newspapers, magazines, etc. to report news without being controlled by the government. Here comes a new concept though. What is news? According to the same dictionary, it's defined as such, a lot of different things, but you can see the definition is quite broad. But there's one key part that is missing from me, facts, all right? So among all these different definitions, there's not a single place where fact is mentioned, which means if full freedom is granted to media or press, there'll be a lot of misinformation. And people can just say whatever they want to say without bearing the consequences. And it's actually not hard to imagine a world like that because we're now living in a world like that. During this pandemic, people have been associating 5G with coronavirus, and people in UK even burned down a lot of 5G towers, right? Also during this pandemic, because people enjoy the freedom of speech and media also enjoy the freedom of reporting on whatever they want to report on, the high-up U.S. government officials like Mr. Pompeo have been accusing China, the lab in Wuhan, of releasing this virus, calling this virus a man-made one, although all the scientists are saying something otherwise. All right. If you remember, in 2016, during the last election, the top-performing fake news outperformed in terms of engagement on Facebook, outperformed the top news outlets like Washington Post or CNN, New York Times. So that's really pathetic. And in the same year, if you remember, there's a thing called Pizzagate, right? A gunman stormed into a pizza joint in DC because he saw the news that the fake news that that pizza joint is associated with Hillary Clinton, who was trying to do some child sex trafficking in that pizza joint. And he wanted to do Michael, you're laughing, right? And he wanted to do his own investigation. Luckily, no one was hurt, okay? And during this current election, this 2020 election, a recent piece by McKay Coppins from The Atlantic shows that the Trump campaign is trying to invest $1 billion to disseminate all those fake news, all those disinformation. That is terrible. So my biggest issue with this argument of freedom of press is that because people can say whatever they want to say, there will be a lot of disinformation for one reason or another. And disinformation can cause really, really negative consequences, yet no one is held accountable. All right? So, but don't get me wrong, I'm still pro the freedom of press. I think it should be granted to those who report with integrity, to those who help us understand what is going on in the world without any intervention from the government or any other forces. So to summarize, I think the freedom of press is required for a government of people, but with one condition: fact-based journalism. That's it.
Well, so you've heard Ming Tian give you his point of view about his view on the free press. Now, let me just say this clearly. There's a difference between freedom of speech and freedom of press. Freedom of press is his definition, which is Merriam's definition, which is the ability of an established credible news institution like Wall Street Journal, China Times, if you call that an independent, to be able to report on any news that it deems worthy, as far as it has multiple corroborated sources. That means that they're not making up information, that they're reporting on information gathered in the field. That's number one. And the government cannot interfere in any way, shape, or form. We know this is not the case in China. Let's be clear about that. Number one. Now, freedom of speech is is part of the Constitution of America, whereby an individual has the right to express their own point of view without any fear of recrimination from another individual or the government. That's our freedom of speech in America. And those are different. Now, what he's doing is conflating the two, because what social media has allowed the world to do is basically people who have opinions to get out there online, take their opinion, lace it with what seems like to be a credible source, and all of a sudden, this opinion can morph into news, which we now know as fake news. That means that there's more fake news, and I define fake news as uncorroborated information that's not coming from a very established news source. There's more fake news in the internet, in the media today than there are real news. I mean, we know that's exactly why Russia was able to interrupt the 2016 election. Why? It's the first time we were able to deal with this deluge of fake news, and nobody knew how to sift through what was real news and what was fake news. So let's be clear about those two. Going back to the point about is a free press required for a democracy to function, or for government to be held responsible by its people? The answer is absolutely yes. Today, Xi Jinping is moving to make himself, quote unquote, the authoritarian leader in China. If that's the case, then you tell me, what is the people's counter move in getting a man who has made himself a leader? That goes with Putin. That goes with North Korea, Kim Jong-un. So you tell me, if the people don't have a voice, if the people don't have a way to essentially stop a dictator who's now representing their interests, how can they do it? A dictator has the ability to shut down all the press, which is what's happened in China. Then how exactly do the people know what's true and what's not? So my friend, let me be clear. There's a difference between fake news and real news. There's a difference between a free press and free speech. Let's not confuse the two.
So now we're entering a 5 minutes debate.
Yes, we are.
Starting from 3, 2, 1. There you go.
All right. So my opinion is that the Chinese version, actually, let me just be clear. Xi Jinping's version, right, of attacking the press is not good for the people. Meaning that it demoralizes, it essentially takes away the power, disempowers the citizen. And also, if we don't have a mechanism to hold him accountable, then who's to say he can't just do whatever he wants, whenever he wants, with no accountability?
Michael, let me be straight with you. I'm not saying I support his policy in terms of his attitude towards media at all.
So what's his attitude towards media? Why don't you tell us that first?
It's a little bit extreme. I agree. Right. Okay. Right now, I've seen people posting like offending content online and got censored. It's not right. I agree with you.
Okay.
What I'm saying is there should be a check in place, right? Mm-hmm. Just like you can post porn on social media, it's harmful for younger generation. Mm-hmm. So there has to be a certain form of censorship. And as a matter of fact, although there's almost no censorship in the U.S., there is another form of censorship called censorship through noise. Meaning, if you don't want people to see one thing, you just post all different things other than that, and you grab more eyeballs than their content, so that their content is censored.
But isn't the answer to that actually moderating the specific conversation that's happening rather than just cutting off all type of communication from anybody?
Well, yeah, you can. So that's my opinion as well. Like you can moderate. You have to moderate what's happening on social media or coming out of those news agencies. But the thing is, who determines that, right? Right now, what's happening in the U.S. is that if you have time to run campaign on Facebook, if you have the money, the resources to post ads or whatever on newspapers, magazines, then you dominate the.
Yes, today.
Right.
That's also because Facebook, as of 2016, didn't have the infrastructure in place to actually properly police, Facebook and Twitter, properly police what's being put out there. Today, they have built-in tools to essentially fact-check information that's out there. And Facebook has done it, and Facebook and Twitter has done a fantastic job in being able to, like...
It's interesting you mentioned that because a recent news about what Facebook has been doing is that they hire people and pay them really minimum wage, only $4 above the minimum wage. I think it was in Arizona or a similar state, to censor what has been posted on their platform, and these people are traumatized because of the content they're seeing. Right, so you're relying on a group of people who got $14 per hour and working almost 10 hours per day without any break.
With this conversation about labor practices, number one, but that's number one. But number two is, yes, today it's human being. Tomorrow it'll be machines. It'll be artificial intelligence that can actually do natural language processing.
In China, it's also done by machines.
Yeah,
There's no difference.
The difference is China just censors everything and everybody, and the only news that's allowed is propaganda. See, Chinese communist propaganda, that's allowed. That's what's allowed. And you're telling me that's okay?
Going back to my opening argument, I said I'm not with that. I agree with you that is.
So what is your argument exactly?
My argument is that freedom, like pure 100% freedom press, is not possible.
It's either you have it or you don't.
Like I said, you're forcing people to pick side.
No,
either you have it or you don't. I want to promote something in the middle.
Hey,
right?
freedom is freedom. I either can leave my house without being afraid of being shot, or I don't.
Freedom comes with the price.
Yes,
it's just like that.
If I'm willing to pay the cost, then I should have freedom.
But no one, well, for example, the people who are disseminating the wrong information, they're not paying the cost. The people are paying the cost.
Yeah,
right.
And so that we have to find mechanisms to protect others.
So there has to be somebody coming in to tell these people who are disseminating those wrong information that, hey, you shouldn't be doing that.
Fine,
they should be punished.
Fine, let's get the mechanism right, but don't censor news.
Well, don't censor the right news. Censor the fake news, right?
And we will.